Today we are going to do two lessons. We're going to talk about lesson 31, which is area of rectangles, as well as lesson 32, which is expanded notation, and some more on elapsed time. So lesson 31 is on areas of rectangles. And all that's saying is the area of anything is what's inside of the figure. So I want to know what's inside. Okay? The one thing with area, when we're just measuring something that's straight like this, just a line segment, okay, we just use like centimeters. Okay? With area, what we're doing is we want to figure out all the little squares inside of here. How many squares inside of there? Since we're talking about squares, okay, we talk about square centimeters. You can abbreviate SQCM. What I would like you to get to is writing, say our answer is 15 centimeters, squared centimeters, or centimeters squared with this little 2 right here. I would like you to get writing like squared centimeters like that, okay, but I will accept any of those 3. Okay. Our first problem says how many floor tiles, 1 foot on each side, are needed to cover the floor of a room that's 8 feet wide and 12 feet long. So they divided this rectangle into a bunch of little squares. You could go and count them all, but that is going to take you quite a while. When we're looking for area of a rectangle, all we're going to do is multiply the length times the width, or the long side times the short side, whatever. Okay? So we're going to take 8 times 12. So 16, 8, 96. Our label, we're talking about feet, squared, or square feet. Okay? So that's all you need to do for the area of a rectangle is multiply the length times the width. Okay, so 8 times 12, 96, and then make sure we square our label. If you don't square the label, you are going to get it wrong. So what is the area of this rectangle? Well, the length is 8 centimeters, width is 4 centimeters, 8 times 4 is 32, my label is centimeters squared. Another way to think about this is we're multiplying centimeters times centimeters. Okay, so that's why we get that centimeter squared. Pretty simple to find the area of a rectangle. The area of a square is 100 square inches. So I'll put a square up here. The area of that whole square is 100 square inches. Letter A asks how long is each side of the square. Okay. Well, a square, remember, all the sides are the same. So I'm going to multiply a number by itself to get to 100. So think about what number times itself is 100. If you thought of 10, you are correct. Okay, and our label is inches. So it says how long is each side of the square? 10 inches. Letter B says what is the perimeter of a square? Well, on a square we can take one side times 4 because there's 4 sides, or we can add up the 4 sides. So I'm going to take 10 times 4 to be 40. Perimeter is just inches because it's just measuring around the outside, okay, in straight lines. So for letter B, it's 40 inches. There's a practice set for lesson 31. I know it's kind of hard to read, so you might need to use your book on some of them. Go ahead and do that, and then continue with the video. Lesson 32. We're going to start with notation. So we have expanded notation and standard notation. So for the first one, it says write 27,000 in expanded notation. So what we're doing is we're going to break it down into each place value. Okay. If you look down at the second problem down here, right here, they list out the number times a place value plus a number times a place value plus a number times a place value with some parentheses in there. I'm going to let you do a little shortcut if you want. You can either do it this way, or you can do it the way I'm going to show you right now. So I start with the 2, because that's my first. So I'm going to write my 2, 3, 4. Count how many place values are after that 2. There's 4. So then I'm going to put 4 zeros after that. So I have 20,000 plus, now I got rid of that. So now I'm going to do the 7 with 3 zeros, so 7,000. And then all I have left is zeros. I don't need to write anything for that. So my answer, I can write as 20,000 plus 7,000. If I wanted to write it like this down here, I could go 2 times 10,000, because that's what place value the 2 is in, parentheses around it, plus 7 times 1,000. And that would be the same. Remember, you can do either that way or that way. This is the quicker way. That is my suggestion. Okay? Let's get rid of some of this stuff down here for you. It says, write this in standard notation. Okay? So we're going to start with this 5 times 1,000. So I can write a 5. That's going to go in the 1,000 spot. So I know I'm going to have 3 spots left after this. Okay. It says the 2, it goes in the hundreds place value. The 8 goes in the tens place value. Now, I'm still missing my ones place value, correct? So, since there's nothing up here for it, I just fill it in with a 0. So my answer becomes 5,280. That is how you write that in standard form. One other thing while I'm thinking of it, let's say on this top problem, the last digit was a 1 instead of a 0. Up here, I would just write plus 1 times 1. So I write times 1 for that place value, because it's a 1's place value. Moving on. Now let's talk about time a little bit. So Jason started the marathon at 7:15 a.m. He finished the race at 11:10 a.m. How long did it take Jason to run the marathon? So when we're talking about elapsed time, what we want to think about is the later time minus the earlier time. And that's going to give us our answer, our difference. So 11:10 is the later time minus 7:15. A common mistake a lot of people make is just thinking it as regular numbers. So I'm going to do it the wrong way first. Okay, so this is the wrong way. Well, I need to borrow here, so that becomes 0, this becomes 10. That's 5. I need to borrow here, so that becomes 10, 9. Borrow again. Okay, 3 hours, 95 minutes. Well, that doesn't really make sense. And when we subtract this, we shouldn't get such a goofy number. Okay, so that's the wrong way. Don't do it that way where you're borrowing over and over. Oh, it should be 11:10. Okay. When we do this, we need to think of the hours and the minutes separately. When we're going to borrow, look at my minutes, 10 minus 15. I know that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is instead of borrowing tens, there's 60 minutes an hour, so I'm going to get rid of an hour over here. So that'll drop that to 10 hours. And I'm going to add 60 minutes, or 1 hour, to my minute side. So now this 10 is going to become 70 when I add this 60. Now, I can borrow regular when I'm working on my minutes. And then 10 minus 7 is going to be 3. So it took 3 hours, 55 minutes. So make sure to keep the hours and the minutes separate. Okay? When you're borrowing, borrow a whole hour, bring it over, and then start doing your subtraction. So figure out your minutes and see if you have to subtract. If the top number has less minutes than the bottom number, borrow that 60 minutes, bring it over, and then start subtracting. What time is 2.5 hours after 10:43 a.m.? Okay, well my later minus earlier is going to equal the difference. I don't know the later. That's what I'm looking for. Minus 10:43 is going to equal 2.5 hours, or 2 hours and 30 minutes. So now what I'm going to need to do is, since this is my unknown, I should know by now that I can add these two numbers, and that should give me my answer. Okay? So hours and minutes are separate. 3 plus 0 is 3, 4 plus 3 is 7, 2, 1. So 1273. It doesn't really work. Okay, that's not a normal time. So let's convert that. Remember, there's 12 hours on a clock, okay, and there's 60 minutes an hour. So I'm going to take 60 minutes over this 73. So there's 13. I'm going to take that 60 minutes and bring it to this side and add 1 hour to that 12. Okay, so I took this 60 minutes, brought it over here, and added it. So now I have 13. Okay, 12 hours on a clock, I can't use 13. Okay, so we think about what is 13 a.m. Well, if I subtract 12, so I think about a clock, I get 1, 13, and I change it to p.m. Another way to do this, which might be a little harder, but sometimes it'll be easier, is take 10:43. I'm going to add 1 hour, so it's 11:43. Add an hour, 12:43. Okay, so now I'm sitting at 12:43, but I have to add a half hour. Well, if I add 17 minutes, that will get me to 1 o'clock p.m., which means I have 13 minutes left. Add 13 more minutes, 1:13 p.m. So you can do it that way too. Either way will work out. I suggest doing this way, especially when you have odd numbers like 10:43. But like I said, either way will work out, and you should be able to get it done. Just remember, after 12 o'clock, well, once we hit 12, this changed to p.m. from a.m. But then if we keep going up, that 13's got to change to 1, 14 to 2, 15 to 3, 20 would be 8, so on and so forth. Okay? And then we're switching our AM and PM. So there's the practice set for lesson 32. Go ahead and do that. Bring any questions you have to class on either lesson. Okay? It's a lot to do, but I don't think it should be very hard for you, most of it. I think the time stuff is what's going to get you, so make sure if you have questions, bring them to class and ask.